These long dog days of summer, I mean, we just made it through a heat wave. Mama was parched through this heat wave. I was hitting up Dunkin' every single day, and I will continue to probably for the rest of my days, but especially this summer. Dunkin' is helping everyone stay cool this summer with its lineup of refreshers. These drinks are packed with bold, fruity flavors and served ice cold. It's amazing. Dunkin' refreshers are the perfect afternoon pick-me-up. I like to start my morning with them personally, and then sometimes I go back for a second one because I'm just feeling crazy. They come in a variety of delicious flavors, including fan favorites mango pineapple and strawberry dragon fruit. And then for a limited time, there's black cherry and there's pink pineapple. I'm going to tell you something right now, and it's a bold claim, let me tell you, but I stand behind it. Pink pineapple will change your life. It is so good. It has me feeling like I'm sitting in a pool, resort side, just living, honey. It's so yummy. Try your favorite flavor with green tea, sparkling water, lemonade, or Dunkin's all-new limeade. I haven't tried the limeade yet, but I'm going to. Usually I get my drinks made with green tea and occasionally lemonade, but I do really like the green tea. Or if you don't want to build your own, try one of Dunkin's curated refreshers like the Cherry Lime Ricky or the Ultimate Pink Daydream. The Cherry Lime Ricky, scrumptious. I could drink like 3 of these a day. They're so freaking yummy. Head to Dunkin' today and find your favorite refresher. Dunkin' refreshers contain less than 1% fruit juice. Limited time offer. When it comes to online college, Southern New Hampshire University is so good, it's scary. Listen, the facts don't lie. SNHU has degree programs that fit your goals, online classes that fit your life, and real support at every step. And if that wasn't enough, they've got some of the lowest online tuition rates in the U.S. This is an airtight case, you guys. Visit snhu.edu/morbid to get started. That's snhu.edu/morbid. Chilling crime cases are mysterious, but finding coverage shouldn't be. With the State Farm Personal Price Plan, you have options and can personalize your plan to help create an affordable price so you can get back to cracking all of life's bigger cases. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Head to statefarm.com to get a quote. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state. Hey, weirdos, I'm Ash.
And I'm Elena.
And this right here that you're listening to in your car, in your house, what'd you say?
At this moment.
At this moment is morbid. I thought you said at a sporting event.
At a sporting event.
I said, why is somebody listening to Morbid at a sporting event?
You don't know.
Speaking of sporting events, Elena took me to my first Celtics game.
Yay!
I had so much fun.
It is. I love the Celtics.
I had a real go sports moment.
Yeah, you did.
You
were jumping up and yelling about fouls by the end of it.
They were bullshit. Bullshit.
I was so excited for you. I was like,
great.
look at her. She's into it.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked
true.
It. I used to like going, weirdly. I never went to the basketball games in high school because I didn't give a shit. But in middle school, I loved it.
That's amazing. Yeah. In middle school,
I loved
it so hard with basketball.
I fucked heavy with it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's fun. The Celtics are awesome. And I won't hear anything to the contrary about that.
Never. I mean, just based off stats alone.
Yeah.
Listen to me.
Look at that.
Number 2.
Look at those stats.
Oklahoma, go fuck yourselves.
Go fuck yourselves.
Look at me talking trash. Talking trash about sports.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
When you get to hear how gnarly Bostonians are.
Oh my God.
The crowd at a Celtics game.
The crowd at this one in particular, honey.
It went off.
It went hard.
It did go
hard
hard
in the pink head.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I know, I love it.
The girls got to do a little thing separately during a couple of games. We entered them into a thing where they got to high five the players.
Oh my God, that's so
and
cute.
they fucking loved it. It's the cutest thing in the
Can you
entire
enter
world.
me into that?
Yeah, so you can high five the players.
I want to high five the players. Is it for children only?
It is.
Or is it for new sports fans?
It's for children only.
I could just crouch.
Just crouch down.
I'm like, good luck, guys.
Yay!
You're like, what the fuck is that woman doing?
You're like, go sports.
What a visual that paints.
I am visualizing it right now.
I just got banned from every Celtics event for the rest of the season.
You just got put on a list. They were like, no, we can't have that happen.
No, I don't want to do that. But I do want to go back.
Oh, and I love it. My kids call Jason Tatum
Jadam
Tatum.
It was so hard to not yell that out during the game.
I know. Every time I see him, I want to be like, Jadam Tatum. But I'm like, your name is Jason.
Sorry.
But yeah, go Celtics. And and yeah, I don't think, is there any other
Bid nasty?
really, I don't know. Ghost posted our episode yesterday
cool.
unexpectedly,
That
like
was
the
pretty
actual
cool.
Ghost account, and I died 1,000 deaths. So here I am,
Hell yeah.
1,000 deaths less than I was yesterday.
You only have how many more lives?
I
you
have no
left?
idea where I started.
You're bigger
so
than a cat.
I am.
It's so funny, the different places that we were about to go with that. You were like, what else do we have? And you went into Ghost, and I was about to say, Ostara's coming up.
So there's that.
We are different people.
Equally as important.
It is.
So
Yeah.
there you
Happy
go.
Ostara. Go
Happy.
paint some eggs.
Yeah.
Put some rabbits out.
Yeah.
Fake ones, duh.
Fake ones.
Don't
Don't
put
just put
don't
your
put out
rabbits
real
out.
rabbits, guys.
People just walk outside and put their rabbits out.
I don't know.
You don't
I don't
know.
know your fucking life.
We really don't. And you know whose life I really don't know?
Can confirm whose.
Herbert Mullins.
Okay, so
His
I don't.
life is lawless.
Here's the thing. I genuinely don't know his life. I can recognize the name.
Genuinely don't.
I genuinely don't know his life. I know the name, and I know that I've heard probably this case before, but I cannot remember the details.
I cannot. It's a wild one.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you genuinely don't know his life.
Okay.
But that you've heard the name.
Yeah.
Because he's definitely up there. He's very brutal. He's very prolific in his numbers. And he was committing crimes at the same time as Edmund Kemper.
Oh.
So they got a little
conflated.
It's one of those things where it's like everyone really knows Edmund Kemper's name for his crimes. But I think this one got a little pushed to the side, which is, when you hear this story, you're going to be like, I'm sorry, what?
I almost wonder, too, if you mentioned him when we did Ed Kemper.
I think I did mention him.
Yeah.
Because I think there was some like confusion with victims and like what was going on. They were committing their crimes at the same time period in the same area.
Okay.
So there was a lot of confusion over what the fuck was
He was
going
like one
on.
of our earliest episodes. I think he's like number 3.
Yeah, he's very early. And Herbert Mullin, though, is called the Killer Hippie, which is quite a moniker.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah, and he was like,
You're not a hippie if you're a murderer.
and he's a gnarly guy.
Oh, no.
But he's also very, very mentally ill.
Oh.
There's a lot happening in this.
Okay.
Very scary stuff.
All
and it was
right.
exacerbated, as we'll see, by like psychedelic drugs and stuff.
Oh, shit.
So that's when you're already mentally ill, taking psychedelic drugs can potentially be harmful.
Yeah, just watch Yellow Jackets.
There you go. You should, because it's really good. I'm in season 2.
For once, I've turned Elena onto a show, and Mikey as well.
Yep.
And I hold the power because I'm caught up and they're not.
It's true, but we're coming up. We're coming up to being caught up.
Almost.
We're getting there. So, in the minds of many, the 1960s was definitely a decade that, like you love a hippie.
I do.
The 60s was a time that was dominated by hippie culture.
Free love, baby.
You really think, yeah, exactly. Free love. And there was a lot of like, trying attempts to advance progressive ideas, and like, this new generation of young people was trying to make shit happen. There's like a lot, when you go back into the 60s, a lot of shit was happening.
It's
there was
interesting.
a lot of cultural changes happening. It's
Movements.
a very interesting decade for sure. But while it is true that the heyday of the baby boomers was one of considerable social and cultural change, it's also an era where some of the darkest parts of humanity became impossible for a lot of Americans to ignore.
Yep.
Like, it really was the time. Beginning in the mid-60s, violent crime and homicide rates were spiking in the U.S., and they were honestly reaching like kind of shocking heights at this point. Because remember, this is when suddenly it became like, oh, maybe we shouldn't hitchhike as much as we are, kind of thing. And it really reached shocking heights in the 80s before starting like a little bit of a downward trend in the 90s. I miss the 90s.
Oh, I long for the 90s.
The number of violent crimes and murders committed varied by city and state, but few were struggling with the problem of violence more than Sorry, California.
Yeah, it happens.
It was rough out there. Beginning in the 60s, California and the Bay Area, more specifically, became a real mecca for hippies and other young people that were drawn to the culture that rejected conservative standards and morals in favor of more permissive behaviors. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before the state, which was once synonymous with free love, became known for producing some of the nation's most notorious serial killers.
Yeah.
Beginning in the mid-60s, a man who would eventually call himself the Zodiac started out on a series of murders that would keep the region locked in a grip of terror for nearly a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just simply vanished.
Yep.
As we know, to this day, we are in the year of our Lord, 2025, and we still have no fucking clue who the Zodiac Killer is.
Yep.
A few years later, in 1968, you might know this name too, Charles Manson and his disciples committed a series of crimes that culminated in a horrific mass murder, effectively ending the era of free love and ushering in an era of fear, paranoia, and suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
To the south, in the LA area, Juan Corona went on a 4-month killing spree that claimed the lives of 25 men.
Oh, wow.
The same time that was happening, another serial killer who we just recently covered, Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer, committed the first of what would be many, many brutal murders. Mm-hmm. And the so-called Southern California strangler, Randy Kraft, who we have not covered, set out on a rampage that claimed the lives of at least 16 people.
Wow.
And this was all in a very short period of time. Yeah. It was just mayhem. Over the course of the 70s, the list of LA area serial killers would grow to include some of the most notorious in the nation's history. But maybe the most shocking and perplexing murders of the era were taking place between the state's two iconic cities in a largely suburban area, Santa Cruz County. Santa Cruz is also, I think, is supposed to be the influence of Santa Carla in Lost Boys.
Yeah, it definitely
being like
is
the murder capital of the world.
Yes.
That's Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
So located about 60 miles outside of San Francisco, Santa Cruz has long served as a more suburban commuter city for those working in but not wanting to live in San Francisco. In 1970, it was home to a wide range of people, from unemployed college students to the highest paid surgeons, essentially, in everything in between. And within a few years, unlike nearby San Francisco, Santa Cruz was becoming very quiet, very peaceful. It was like a very nice place to live. But then within a few more years, it feels like it kind of just happened in like a slow burn at the other end of the spectrum. It became known to many in California and the United States as the murder capital of the world.
Yep.
Or Santa Carla. Now, for the most part, residents of Santa Cruz thought of crime as something that happened, elsewhere in places like San Francisco. This is before it became known what it was known as. They were thinking San Francisco is where that happened, where the Zodiac was killing young couples and terrorizing residents with, threatening letters to the press and cryptics and all that. But on the night of October 1970, murder came right to Santa Cruz when Dr. Victor Oda, his wife, and their 2 young sons, and the doctor's secretary were found murdered in the family swimming pool, and their house was set ablaze.
Oh my God.
On the windshield of Oda's car was a typewritten letter threatening violence, again, quote, against, quote, persons who misuse the natural environment. And it was signed with several hand-drawn tarot symbols.
What? Tarot symbols?
Yep.
Okay. That is not at all where I thought we were going.
No. And about a week after that, Santa Cruz police arrested 24-year-old John Lindley Frazier, a local man known for his very erratic behavior and a passion for environmental causes and his obsession with the Bible. Oof. And it would turn out that the murder of the Ota family was just the beginning. In the 3 years that followed, a number of young women from the Santa Cruz area went missing, and their bodies were discovered months or years later, showing signs of extreme violence. The murder of these young women would eventually be attributed to Edmund Kemper. We know Edmund Kemper if you listen to the episode, but he was a local man who was, One of the things that was very interesting about him is that he was very friendly with the local police.
Yeah.
Hung out with them at the bars, wanted to be a police officer,
Yup.
but he was literally too big to be a police officer,
His
like too tall.
stature is insane.
But he also had a history of violent antisocial behavior that
Yep.
eventually culminated in a horrific series of murders. Now, in the cases of, Fraser and Kemper, each had a particular victim type that, upon consideration, made sense given their pathology when you could attribute it to that. This hardly made residents of Santa Cruz feel safer, but it did kind of suggest that some people were safer than others.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which often happens with these things. And it gave the illusion that as long as residents avoided certain behaviors or activities, they could maybe avoid danger.
It reminds you of the Son of Sam case where girls were going out and dyeing their hair.
Yes.
Yep.
Like if you see any kind of pattern happening, you
work
try to get
against
away
it.
from it.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, while Fraser was killing those he believed to be polluters and harming the environment, and Kemper was killing young women, there was another killer, or, perhaps killers at work in the Santa Cruz area. And unlike the victims of Fraser and Kemper, these victims seem to be completely random.
Okay.
Like chosen completely just like
At a
luck
whim.
of the draw. Although it would take time for investigators to realize they were dealing with more than one killer because there were several going on at once. By early 1973, at least 13 basically unrelated murders committed in Santa Cruz in the preceding year would be now attributed to 26-year-old Herbert Mullin.
26 years old.
Yeah, 26 years old.
That is so young.
Right?
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
And that's at least 13
Wow.
were attributed to him that they thought were totally unrelated because there was no pattern here.
Right.
It was just mayhem.
Just at whim.
So let's talk about Herbert Mullin a little bit.
Alrighty.
Born in Salinas, California on April 14th, 1947, his early life was, by most accounts, fairly ordinary and unremarkable. The most remarkable thing about his birth was that it occurred exactly 41 years to the day after the San Francisco earthquake of 1906.
Oh.
Seems kind of like random to mention that, and you're like, what? Cool.
Yeah.
But it comes into play in a very big way in his behavior later. So hold on to that little nugget.
Okay.
At home, the Mullin family seemed to be the picture-perfect conservative American family. The dad, Martin, was a veteran of World War II. He was stern. He was strict. Definitely met the definition of, mid-century American masculinity.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
According to author Ryan Green, quote, Martin did show his son affection where he could.
Okay.
He shared stories with him about his experiences in the war, taught him how to fire a gun, and even engaged in playful boxing matches with the young boy in the kitchen while their dinner was being cooked.
So he sounded like he was like a pretty all right dad.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Martin Mullin was definitely the head of the household because that's the way it was back then. But Herbert's mother, Jean, was responsible for much of the children's education and their spirituality.
Okay.
Jean Mullin was a devout Catholic, and she took her faith very seriously. And she literally, she was one of those that I don't want to hear you questioning anything about my beliefs.
Yikes.
Don't question it, believe it, take what I say as the word, and that's it. Whether you have questions or not, I don't want to hear it.
That's just not the way to teach anybody anything.
Yeah, that's not great. You have to, because if people have questions about something,
You should be able to answer
them.
Yep.
Now, according to Green, she portrayed the outside world as a dangerous and unhappy place where anything could happen. And she was insistent upon bringing the children to church every Sunday.
Okay.
Which you're like, you know what? She's trying to keep them
she's
safe.
being for real.
Yeah, she believes in Catholicism, so she's bringing the kids to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
But you don't need to teach
To each
your
their
little
own.
tiny kids how unsafe and unhappy the world
That's
is.
the thing. You got to let them have a little bit of
Imagination.
rose-colored glasses on for a little while.
Right.
So young Herbert followed his parents' rules, but he was also pretty smart. He
Yeah.
was a very smart child.
That tends to happen.
Yeah, and he also asked a lot of challenging questions because as a smart kid, you ask a lot of questions about the world around you because
Yeah.
you want to understand more.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really questioning when it came to religion. The result of this challenging personality was almost always punishment from his mother, who deemed her son to be blasphemous for asking questions.
This part of the show is brought to you by Anua, the Korean skincare brand known for scientific, gentle, yet effective formulations. The latest from Anua is the Retinol Collagen Gua Sha Cream, a firming cream with a gua sha-shaped tip built right in. Have you guys heard of gua sha? It's that viral massage tool that moves fluid and tension out of your face. Less puffiness, a snatched jawline, honey, more definition in your face. Retinol firms and reduces fine lines, and collagen keeps your skin plump and structured. This cream has both of those things, arguably the most optimal combo for that snatched, lifted look all in one step. I am obsessed with the Gua Sha cream. First of all, it feels so cool to the touch. When you put that on your face, it's just like, this is lovely. It's like a little spa treatment that you can give yourself. I like to do mine at night after I get out of the shower. I rub the cream on my face with the little gua sha. I'm sculpting that jawline, honey. I got it on the cheekbones. And actually, I had a facial the other day, and the lady doing my facial, the professional, she said, "Do you use a gua sha at home?" And I said, "I do." And I said, "How did you know that?" And she said, "I didn't have those little like bumps in my chin or like different areas like that." So she could tell that I was using the gua sha. And I said, "Oh my God." I just feel like I wake up less puffy in the morning when I do it the night before. But you can do it whenever you want to. I, 10 out of 10, recommend this product. The Anua Gua Sha Cream value set is available at anua.com, already discounted. Use code MORBID for an extra 10% off. That's ANUA.com, code MORBID. Every good detective needs a partner to support them on important cases. Think of a State Farm agent like your sidekick, there to help you along the way in your search for coverage. State Farm can help you choose the coverage you need, whether it's for your home, car, boat, or even RV. With so many options, it's nice knowing you have help finding what fits for you so you can get back to solving all of life's bigger cases. Go to statefarm.com or use the award-winning app to connect with a local agent and get a quote. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
I don't understand what's blasphemous about that.
Yeah,
especially if he's trying to understand. It's not that he's questioning it like to be a dick. He's
And
just
that's
like,
the
I'm
thing.
trying to get this.
He's just trying to understand it better. Like, you should have the answers for him.
Right.
And help him understand.
Mm-hmm.
According to Green, this is where Mullin's kind of like disordered and paranoid and conspiratorial thinking came from.
I mean, yeah.
Here is her, because he basically says he had discovered the truth about the world and he was being punished for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so him questioning things that he's seeing, he's being punished for that. So, of course, he's going to sit there and be like, what are you all hiding?
And of course, that's going to create paranoia.
Of course. Now, in truth, it's pretty unclear when he started showing signs of mental illness or paranoia. Like, nobody knows exactly when it started. But it does appear as though his personality definitely started changing when he entered adolescence, which is pretty common.
Yeah.
Things really come out at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly when it came to his relationship with his parents. So Herb started to believe his parents were sabotaging his attempts at making friends. He even believed so far that his parents were going door to door in the neighborhood, asking people to ignore him.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah. But, and this is wild, things were very different at school because he was very well liked by his peers and he was regarded as a generally good student by his teachers. So he was super successful at school. He was even successful in after school sports. And like, so he was good at academics and sports.
Yeah.
And he became one of the school's top athletes.
Wow.
So he's killing it at school and doing really well in sports. His peers like him. And then he goes home and he's being treated like an asshole for asking questions.
And he doesn't think anybody likes him.
Yeah.
Even though he's like having positive experiences.
And I don't know if it's like he didn't think anybody liked him in the neighborhood or like people like, you know what I mean? Like, but then he goes to school and gets like a little more, because I'm not really sure.
That's interesting.
But as he entered his teen years, his conservative worldview that he'd kind of had been forced upon him by his parents started to fade a little bit. And it was giving way to more liberal and progressive perspectives of his friends. Like, you know, he was becoming a hippie in the 60s, you know, that it was one of those. And he attended San Lorenzo Valley High School in San Francisco. He had definitely always been a little suspicious of his parents' ideologies, like as evidenced by him constantly challenging them and questioning them. And this new ideology that he was starting to adopt was only leading to more fights at home.
I'm sure.
And in turn, this further fueled his belief that even his parents disliked him. But his success at school did, make these stressors at home a little easier to cope with, because he was starting to see, like, I am getting positive stuff at school.
Yeah.
So, like, I can't be all bad.
And he can kind of escape at school.
Yeah. And in fact, by the time he was 16 years old, he was voted most likely to succeed in school.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's chilling.
Isn't that wild?
Yes.
Now, any pride that he had in his academic and social performance at school was cut short in 1965. And this is when his best friend, Dean Richardson, died unexpectedly.
Oh, that's awful.
He was only a teenager.
Yeah.
During the last couple of years in high school, they had become nearly inseparable, and they had even been accepted to the same college. Then in early September, Dean, his best friend there, was riding his motorcycle with his sister on the back when he was cut off by a driver who crashed into a tree. The driver of the car and his girlfriend were killed instantly, and Dean was transported to the hospital but ended up dying of his injuries on September 9th.
That's really sad.
Yeah, and Dean's sister, Mardine, would be the only one that survived that whole crash.
Wow.
Which is lucky for her being on the back of that bike.
Yeah, that's not something that you would expect.
No. Now, until Dean's death, Herbert had only demonstrated, some quirky tendencies and, occasionally what was seen as a challenging personality.
Yeah.
Nothing that would really indicate any kind of chronic mental health issue or anything like that. But after Dean died, his grief and inability to manage his emotions became very apparent. According to Green, almost overnight, his bedroom was converted into a vast shrine for his dead friend. So to me, it sounds like he was just not given the tools to process this and was not given like an open line of communication to process it.
Well, it's probably hard too because he's questioning his religious beliefs.
That's the thing,
and
like
then
his spirituality.
His friend dies, and he's probably just wondering, like, where's my friend?
Where do I put this grief? Where are they somewhere else? Are they just gone?
That's hard.
Yeah.
Especially at any age, but especially at such a young age.
Yeah. And his inability to manage his grief and process it and just to like move forward with his life was taking a toll on his relationships with friends and even his girlfriend at the time. He had a girlfriend at the time and she apparently, quote, complained about his obsessive behavior over some dead boy.
That's
like
callous.
It's his best friend.
Yeah.
So rather than confront his ongoing difficulty in accepting Dean's death, Herbert explained to his girlfriend that he was, quote, becoming homosexual.
Okay. It doesn't work like that.
In his mind, was the only possible explanation for his intense emotional reaction. Because he just wasn't
so sad.
Taught differently.
And you also wonder if that was like projected at home.
Well, I wonder if that was part of some of the things he would challenge or question and wasn't getting answers for and was kind of being taught that.
And because he made his bedroom like a shrine, who knows how his parents felt about that. You know?
I think there was a lot of probably confusing things being taught to him. So he was just like, oh, well, that's what's happening.
Right.
Like, which is
because
wild.
you can love somebody but not be in love with them.
Exactly.
But I think he was clearly confused about his feelings for Dean.
And he wasn't getting somebody to sit him down and say, like, it's okay. Like, you loved him, and that doesn't mean you were in love with him unless,
And if you are, great.
Feel your feelings, But in reality, he was a teenage boy who was forced to confront the existential crisis of death in a particularly cruel and unexpected way. Like, this came out of nowhere. And he was lacking the emotional tools or support that he needed to manage this. So it's like, of course, he's going to come to some like random conclusions because of it. And so his emotions just got away from him, basically. And within a few weeks after the funeral, he started seeking a religious or spiritual path to understand death. So that really was part of the issue, was like, I just don't understand this.
That makes sense.
Unfortunately, and much to his mother's disappointment, he didn't turn to Catholicism. Instead, he turned to Eastern religions and New Age spiritual practices that were growing in popularity with young people at the time. Not surprisingly, the idea of reincarnation was particularly appealing to him.
Okay.
Because of, the recent loss.
Yeah.
In the mid-1960s, and honestly, like pretty much today too, Western audiences had minimal insight into non-Western religions and tended to understand them through the lens of Christianity. The result was essentially a spiritual practice that looked decidedly foreign and mystical, but was otherwise fairly Christian in practice. Also, the lack of insight or any kind of like real information into these practices typically meant that white practitioners of these took it upon themselves to just kind of like fill in the gaps with their own ideas and beliefs.
Whitewash it.
Which, like,
Yeah.
So for Herb, the lack of available information simply meant that he needed to go to Asia to learn more about the practices that he had become so taken with.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Which, like, at this point, you're like, okay, go to Asia.
Yeah.
Learn about
I
that.
hate
Like,
that I'm
whatever makes you
currently
feel
rooting for
good.
you.
But his parents were not thrilled about his interest in Eastern religions and refused to help him travel there or learn any more about it.
That's dumb.
Instead, his father encouraged him to join the military
That will not help.
because he was arguing, well, you could travel and learn more about the real world. But to Herbert, a hippie with an interest in progressive ideologies, the idea of joining the military during the ramp up of an immoral foreign war was pretty incomprehensible.
Well, and especially somebody already struggling with their emotional stability.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
not
think
a great time to join the military.
Definitely not. Instead, he turned to drugs and started experimenting heavily with LSD and other hallucinogens just to try to expand his mind, man.
Also, not a great time to
Also
do
not a
psychedelic
great
drugs.
time. Yeah, I don't think that was the answer that we were looking for here.
No.
Now, under the best of circumstances, hallucinogenic drugs are unpredictable and can have lasting, very bad consequences.
Mhm.
For Herbert Mullin, a person who'd been showing signs of an early onset psychotic disorder, they almost certainly hastened his downward spiral into complete instability.
Mhm.
In the years that followed Dean's death, his behavior became increasingly bizarre and inappropriate, all while his friends and former classmates put more and more distance between themselves and Herbert. In one instance, following his breakup with his high school girlfriend, he approached his older sister to ask for sex.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That
So there's
happened
that.
so fast. Okay.
Yeah, that really, it
That
just
really,
really
popped off right there.
So
What?
Herbert's sister told their mother about what
Oh.
had just been asked of her. And Jean Mullin refused to believe that such a thing could be true and decided her daughter was being spiteful and trying to get Herbert in trouble.
That's not the stance you should take on that matter.
That's fucked up in a way I can't even describe. Jean Mullin.
It's fucked up that that happened to her, and that
Yeah, and then her
her
mother
own
was like,
mom was like, "You just want to get Herbert in
"You're
trouble."
being spiteful."
It's like, damn, you really assume the worst in people, girl.
Well, and what's worse is in the months after that, the scene repeated itself several times.
Oh no.
Herb would brazenly proposition his older sister for sex. And she would inform her parents
like, it's
each
still
time.
happening.
And Jean and Martin refused to believe their daughter. Why would she keep saying this?
Right. Why would she ever say that? Never mind, continue to.
And after so long of this, she was like, I can't handle this anymore. I can't be in this house anymore. So she convinced her boyfriend to marry her so she could move out with him and not piss off her parents, you know, the religious thing of like, you can't move out unless you're getting married.
Oh my god.
So
that
she
poor
convinced
girl.
her boyfriend, please marry me so I can get
like,
out
I
of
gotta
here.
get out of here. That is
Like-
so awful.
Now, between his inappropriate sexual behavior, the increasingly bizarre thought patterns, and his growing obsession with reincarnation, one would assume it would have occurred to either one of his parents that, like, something was wrong here. Like,
Yeah.
he's not entirely mentally sound right now. But at no point did either parent, up till this point, attempt to get help for their son or even speak to him about his mental health.
What the fuck?
Despite him obviously, like, devolving
Tripping balls
here.
and
Like,
losing his mind and
yeah.
sexually assaulting his sister.
And in fact, it took until 1969, after 4 years of his obvious decline, that anyone would do anything to intervene.
Wow.
They just ignored him before that. One afternoon, in anticipation of Herbert's older sister and her new husband coming back for dinner to the house, Jean Mullin asked him to help clean up the house before anyone arrived. And he didn't mind this. Like, he always liked doing that stuff. He said he found it calming, like cleaning.
I love a good tidy.
You know, and not a lot of things were calming him at this point. So he was fine. He did his job. He was happy to do it. And when his sister and her husband arrived a few hours later, at first he was totally fine, like very docile, very, you know, totally normal. But then his demeanor totally switched. Because, again, he was very polite in greeting everyone as they entered the house. And then all of a sudden, Martin noticed that while Herbert was acting normally with everyone else, It appeared that he was perfectly mirroring his brother-in-law's behavior when they interacted.
Oh, that's so fucking creepy.
Isn't that like beyond
That's
chilling?
chilling, yes. Oh, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Later,
And as his sister, first of
Yeah.
all, his sister was probably losing her mind. And then the brother-in-law there is
he's
probably
probably like, what
what is
fuck?
going on?
Yeah. And it's later, Martin Mullin would describe his behavior not as malicious or mocking, but as compulsive. And he said, quote, almost supernatural to observe.
What?
Now, Herbert mimicked his brother-in-law's every move and mannerism, no matter how small, with almost no delay. Like he could anticipate them before it happened.
What?
And over the course of the dinner, everyone at the table was picking up on this, but it was his mother's reaction that seemed to snap him out of it. Because unlike everyone else at the dinner table who reacted to the display, like just kind of like
Nervously.
like they said, like literally with like uneasy, like chuckling, kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, like
What you doing?
yeah, if they even acknowledged it at all, because some of them were just not going to even bring it up.
Yeah.
Jean Mullin went into a near hysterical panic and said her son was possessed.
Girl.
Babe, he's
Oh my
mentally ill
God.
and he needs help.
Sounds like she's also mentally ill.
Yeah. Now, the next day, Jean contacted the family doctor and explained the symptoms that she had seen the night before.
She said, I think he's possessed by the devil.
Yeah, and what kills me is like she calls the next day and talks about what had happened at the dinner table the night before. And then she starts talking about like, yeah, actually, this has been happening since his final year of high school. And like after his best friend died, it really got bad. And it's like, why are you just telling the
now.
doctor? So you have noticed.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, so you're not in this blind blur haze of like not seeing it. You've seen it. You just didn't want to
That
acknowledge it.
generation loved to ignore things.
Oh, they did. The generation of ignoring. The doctor agreed that this behavior was definitely strange.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you know what? There's definitely a diagnosis here, but he said he couldn't be certain until Herbert was admitted to a psychiatric hospital for observation and evaluation.
Okay.
Now, to Jean, the doctor's suggestion was actually, which I was surprised by, was a comfort to her because she was like, you know what? A solution to the problem. He's going to agree to the evaluation. We'll get him diagnosed and get him medicated.
Okay.
And like which I was like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
You
Jean.
should have done this a little before this, but okay. Martin Mullin, on the other hand, was a much harder sell on the idea of having his son brought to a hospital for somebody who is mentally ill,
Mm-hmm.
how he saw it.
Yeah.
In a relatively more conservative era, such treatments were heavily stigmatized, and those who were diagnosed with a mental illness were often treated as completely dysfunctional by society.
Yep.
And we still see that.
Yeah.
For that matter, Martin was
This episode is brought to you by SoFi, the all-in-one finance app where you can bank, borrow, and invest all in one place. Let's talk about bank accounts for a second. The average bank savings rate is 0.39% in interest. You're earning pennies on your savings, and it doesn't have to be that way. But with SoFi's high-yield checkings and savings, the money barely making moves sitting in your savings account can earn over 8 times the national average savings rate with eligible direct deposit. No account or overdraft fees. We love transparency. You can get your paycheck up to 2 days early, plus get up to a $300 welcome bonus when you sign up with eligible direct deposit. Sign up for SoFi checking and savings at SoFi.com/morbid. SoFi checking and savings is offered through SoFi Bank NA, member FDIC. Terms apply. Getting scared is one thing. Getting a thrill is, well, you want more of those in your life. The Genesis GV70 is built to thrill, baby. A thrilling yet elegant design always makes driving the GV70 an exciting adventure. Its powerful athletic stance screams performance and turns heads. Everybody's looking at you, girl, or boy, or whoever. Command the road and experience a class-leading standard 300 horsepower. Oh my God. Plus, discover the different dynamic drive modes for all different terrains. Choose between the different terrain modes for whatever road conditions you may encounter. The Genesis GV70's award-winning technology and performance lets you drive with comfort and drive with confidence all at the same time. It's an exciting SUV with intuitive tech that can make your ride smooth even when the road isn't. And its blind spot cameras allow you to see what's next to you. It's like having eyes on the side of your head. That's pretty iconic. Its performance, by the way, is
is measured not only in power, but in how it makes you feel confident, sexy. The Genesis GV70. Learn more at genesis.com and feel the GV70.
And even convinced that his son was mentally ill.
He definitely is.
Which is like, babe,
if he's copying your every fucking move of your son-in-law at the dinner table, something's up.
well, and you can see it in his response later when he says that the mirroring almost looks supernatural.
Yeah,
That's a very religious way of looking at it, where I think he was possessed.
Yeah,
and
he wasn't.
He is suffering from a mental illness and needs a lot of help.
Right.
And the thing is, if Martin didn't believe that Herbert was mentally ill, Herbert did not believe he was either.
Right.
Because if his father is saying he's not, he's not.
Mm-hmm. And his mom's just hysterical.
Exactly. And in fact, as far as Herbert could tell, he was the one person in the house with the greatest clarity, while everyone else seemed to be the ones with the psychiatric issues.
Oh, that's so scary.
Yeah. In the few years following his graduation from high school, his paranoia seemed to have kind of faded for a little while, especially when he was doing well and had other stuff to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
He needed something to focus on. The talk of hospitalization, which was invariably, heated and intense, brought the suspicion and paranoia back with full force. Whenever this got brought up, it just made him more and more questioning everything around him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He quickly surmised that his parents weren't interested in his mental health and well-being, and instead they were conspiring with his doctor to have him committed and removed from their home. That's how he viewed it. Now, despite his suspicions, he did eventually consent to seeing a psychiatrist. Basically, he was doing it just to prove to his mother that he wasn't mentally ill, so she would leave him alone. After all, he believed he was the more enlightened one, and everyone else around him was just bonkers. And as soon as the doctor saw that, she was going to put Jean's mind at ease, and we were going to put this all behind us, and everybody will be fine. But of course, things did not work out that way. Almost immediately, the staff at Mendocino State Hospital recognized that his behavior and disordered thinking were symptoms of schizophrenia.
I was wondering.
And he was committed for observation. What followed was several years of very frustrating treatment. Doctors were never certain whether Herbert was trustworthy, like when he was reporting things, or whether his paranoid personality was causing him to provide inaccurate information.
Okay.
It was very difficult, especially at that time.
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult for them to weed through what he was reporting to them. You know what I mean? They do become, these kind of patients can become an unreliable narrator of what's going on, especially back then when it was very
there's a limited
unknown,
understanding.
Yeah, it was unknown, the ins and outs and deep things about this particular illness.
Yes, that makes sense.
Now, the extent of Herb's treatment during this period is not super clear, but between 1969 and 1972, he was committed to 5 different hospitals. Each time he would be discharged once doctors determined he was no danger to himself or others.
Damn, that's a lot of hospitalizations.
A lot of hospitals. And while we may not know exactly what transpired during all of these periods of hospitalization, what is known is that while he was hospitalized at Mendocino State Hospital, he first reported his concerns and paranoia around earthquakes. Huh. That's when it first came out. During the first hospitalization, he casually mentioned his certainty that there would be another earthquake in California in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, hospital staff were like, okay, whatever. And we're not going to pay attention to this. But years later, many would wish that they had. Now, and we'll get back to that, don't worry. During his period of repeated hospitalizations, Herbert Mullin was mostly compliant, and he was pretty honest during most of those. But he also loathed being confined and being accountable in any way, shape, or form to authority. And the longer he was hospitalized, the more defiant he became. He started compliant, became defiant.
Yeah.
And the more experience he gained in the hospital system, the more he learned about what he needed to say in order to convince the psychiatrist that he was no longer a danger to anyone.
Yep.
This meant that while he continued to describe symptoms of schizophrenia, he left out descriptions of command hallucinations, particularly any that might result in a long hospital stay.
That's really scary.
Now, after being discharged in the later spring of 1972, he went to San Francisco and tried to join an art collective there, but his behavior made the others uncomfortable and he was asked to leave.
Oh.
So he went back home to his parents' house in Felton, And everyone, behaved as though nothing had ever happened to disrupt the family.
That's such a good way of like coping with things. Just
Yeah,
pretend they never
totally.
happened.
Just sweep that under the rug.
Yeah, it always works.
We don't need to talk through it. It's cool.
Yeah.
Quietly, however, Herbert once again became fixated on mysticism and the concepts of reincarnation and sacrifice.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Reincarnation, great. Sacrifice not
no.
great.
So what he believed was the war in Vietnam had resulted in so much death and destruction that he believed the gods had been appeased by that sacrifice.
Oh, no.
Thereby, that's how they had avoided any major natural disasters.
Oh,
That kind of violence and destruction was stopping the natural disasters from happening again.
That is some disordered thinking right there.
But by late 1972, the war was showing signs of slowing as the American public, grew weary of a losing battle. To Herbert, the end of the war meant the end of voluntary sacrifice, and he became certain that unless more sacrifices were made, an earthquake would wipe California off the map completely.
Oh my God.
So you can see how he got there.
Oh my God.
Now, it wasn't just fears that led Herbert to believe California was in danger of mass destruction. The voices in his head had for some time been telling him that.
Yeah.
From a very early age, Herbert was struck by the fact that he had been born exactly 41 years after the San Francisco earthquake of 1906, which was a natural disaster that destroyed nearly all of San Francisco and killed thousands of people. It was a horrible, horrible disaster.
Yeah.
Over time, that fascination of him being born at that, 41 years after to the day, it became warped and worked into Herbert's delusion so that he came to believe that it was his responsibility to prevent earthquakes. Like it all fell on him because of when he was born.
I was like, dude, what significance would 41 have?
And he believed in order to do this, he had to make sacrifices.
Oh, I hate this.
Yeah.
I've never heard this case before. I know I've heard the name, but now I know I have never heard this case.
Now, his killing spree was largely driven by, delusions.
Yeah. Mental illness.
But that didn't mean he didn't want at least some recognition for the quote unquote project he was planning to undertake.
Not a project.
Yeah. However, Herb knew if he told his parents or doctors about his thoughts and hallucinations, they would send him back to the hospital and he wouldn't be able to fulfill his mission.
Mm-hmm.
Which to me, I have to wonder if that shows some sense of he knows what he's doing is wrong and that he will be sent back to the hospital for it.
I feel like it's so hard with
I don't know
a
enough
case
about
like
it,
that
though.
because I think it's like he knows what he's doing is wrong by society's standards, but he doesn't hold himself to those standards.
Yeah,
because
so that
he's
makes
here
sense.
for a higher purpose.
There you go. So that's the thing. That's
know
why
what I
this is
mean?
an interesting one.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to tell anybody about it. And instead, he started sending rambling letters to anonymous recipients around California, making vague allusions to what he planned to do, and then would sign each letter, quote, "a human sacrifice, Herbert Mullin."
Huh.
And that signature is definitely unsettling, a human sacrifice. But apparently the contents of the letter must not have been too alarming because no one reported them to the authorities.
Anybody signs off a letter, human sacrifice, you're getting reported.
Yeah,
babe.
you're getting reported, buddy. Now, on the afternoon of October 13th, Herbert got in his car and went out for a drive. And he wasn't headed anywhere in particular. But by then, he had spent months thinking about his plan to save California, and it was finally time to put the plan into action.
I hate this.
So he decided to just let the road take him wherever he was meant to go.
Oh, Christ.
And he left Santa Cruz in the direction of the mountains, believing that his first sacrifice would definitely be found there. And as he drove casually down Highway 9, the voices in his head grew stronger. And by the time he entered Rincon, I believe it is, they were practically shouting at him. Because that's when he saw what he appeared to be what he thought to be a homeless man walking down the side of the road. To Herbert, who had let the voices and the, fates guide him thus far, there was no question that this man on the side of the road was his first sacrifice.
Oh, no.
So he drove past the man on the side of the road, then rounded a bend in the road and pulled off to the side of the highway, got out, opened the hood of his car, and gave the impression of car trouble.
Oh, man.
Now, this man who was walking down the road was Lawrence White. He was 55 years old, and that year had not been great for him.
Yeah.
He had struggled to get himself, back on his feet, try to find somewhere to live, trying to find work. And he often found himself on the wrong end of the law for one trivial reason or another. Just a few weeks earlier, in mid-September, he had been in custody at the Santa Cruz County Jail when a riot broke out among the inmates. And, shit was destroyed, mattresses were burned. It was a crazy riot. And several of the guards and inmates were assaulted. Later, the county jail representative, George Foster, told reporters, "You get a young guy who shoots off his mouth and the other inmates nail him. They take out their frustrations in the only way they know how, with violence." Now, during that riot, Lawrence was struck in the head and lost consciousness. So he had spent the last couple of weeks, once he got out of the jail, because he was in there for trivial reasons. It's
not like a long sentence.
Murder. Right. So he had spent the last couple of weeks at a rehab center near La Selva Beach before being discharged just back onto the street. Despite all his recent troubles, though, he wasn't one to turn away someone in need.
Oh.
So when he saw, Herbert's old Chevy station wagon pulled off to the side of the road, he approached and said, "Can I help? What's going on?" As it turned out, he actually knew a thing or two about cars, and especially Chevys in particular, so it was helpful. So he introduced himself, and he's like, "Let me take a look under the hood." And, and so Herbert was like, "You know what? In exchange for your help, I'll drive you wherever you need to go."
Oh, no.
Now, at first, Lawrence checked, all the usual spots, making sure the engine had enough oil, all that stuff. And while he was continuing to look under the hood, Herbert crept around to the back of the car and got a baseball bat he'd stashed in the trunk. His plan was to knock Lawrence unconscious, then stab him in the heart. And the reason he was going to do this was because that's how he saw sacrifices happen in movies or books. Stab him in the heart.
Okay.
That was always his, I need to stab them in the heart. Apparently, he wouldn't need to go through all that trouble, because when Herbert returned to the front of the vehicle, Lawrence had just about finished under the hood and was, about to tell him, I didn't find anything wrong with it. And Herbert struck him with the bat in the back of the head as hard as he could, knocking him to the ground. Herbert struck him in the head 3 more times while he was on the ground. And the blows from the bat didn't just incapacitate Lawrence White, they shattered the back of his skull.
Oh, God.
And it actually pushed shards of bone into his brain, and he was killed instantly.
Oh, my God.
Now, with Lawrence dead, Herbert had prevented, apparently, another catastrophic earthquake, and in his mind, saved millions of people.
No.
So he felt confident that he had done the right thing.
Wow, this is insane.
Yeah. So he threw the bat back in the trunk, closed the hood, and then he dragged Lawrence White's body into nearby brush and got back in the car and just headed home.
Jesus Christ.
Now, a few days later, Lawrence White's battered body would be discovered in the woods along the side of Highway 9. He was discovered by a passing driver who reported it to the police. The death was labeled a homicide, the results of several blows to the head by, quote, a narrow, blunt instrument. But it would be several months before they learned any of the details of Lawrence's death. With no next of kin or state to contact, Lawrence's remains were interred at Oakwood Memorial Park at the expense of the state.
That's so sad.
Which is so sad. Now, after Lawrence's murder, Mullin expected to feel some sense of relief. He had lived up to what the voices in his head were telling him to do. He had fulfilled his end of the bargain to to stave off the impending earthquake. But he said he still felt a sense of unease and dread that he couldn't shake. And then he realized why. He was like, oh, well, the Vietnam War had cost hundreds of thousands of lives. So it really doesn't seem reasonable that one sacrifice is going to be enough to do this.
Oh, man.
And there was another new concern, too, because since killing Lawrence White, his delusional thinking had come to include the frightening belief that the earth was being rapidly polluted, and that now he had to go after people for that.
Okay.
And he was believing that, people, their bodies were polluting the earth.
Dear God.
Yeah. Which, this next one is horrific.
Okay.
They all are, but this one is particularly gruesome.
Getting scared is one thing. Getting a thrill is, well, you want more of those in your life. The Genesis GV70 is built to thrill, baby. A thrilling yet elegant design always makes driving the GV70 an exciting adventure. Its powerful athletic stance screams performance and turns heads. Everybody's looking at you, girl, or boy, or whoever. Command the road and experience a class-leading standard 300 horsepower. Oh my God. Plus, discover the different dynamic drive modes for all different terrains. Choose between the different terrain modes for whatever road conditions you may encounter. The Genesis GV70's award-winning technology and performance lets you drive with comfort and drive with confidence all at the same time. It's an exciting SUV with intuitive tech that can make your ride smooth even when the road isn't. And its blind spot cameras allow you to see what's next to you. It's like having eyes on the side of your head. That's pretty iconic. Its performance, by the way, is measured not only in power, but in how it makes you feel confident, sexy. The Genesis GV70. Learn more at genesis.com and feel the GV70. This episode is brought to you by SoFi, the all-in-one finance app where you can bank, borrow, and invest all in one place. Let's talk about bank accounts for a second. The average bank savings rate is 0.39% in interest. You're earning pennies on your savings, and it doesn't have to be that way. But with SoFi's high-yield checkings and savings, the money barely making moves sitting in your savings account can earn over 8 times the national average savings rate with eligible direct deposit. No account or overdraft fees. We love transparency. You can get your paycheck up to 2 days early, plus get up to a $300 welcome bonus when you sign up with eligible direct deposit. Sign up for SoFi checking and savings at SoFi.com/morbid. SoFi checking and savings is offered through SoFi Bank, N.A., member FDIC. Terms apply.
On October 24th, just 10 days
damn.
after the murder of Lawrence White, Herbert was out for a drive along May Avenue in Santa Cruz, and he spotted 24-year-old Mary Guilfoyle hurrying down the sidewalk. Apparently, Mary had an appointment at the Cabrillo College Department of Human Resources, and she was running late. So she was so relieved when Herbert pulled up beside her in his station wagon and offered her a ride. It was becoming risky to hitchhike at that point, like known to be risky to hitchhike, but he looked pretty ordinary. He just looked like a hippie.
Yeah.
Like he didn't look like particularly frightening.
Yeah.
And you know, she had taken rides before from like older men who had stopped, and those were much scarier.
Yeah.
So she decided to take a chance. The two drove apparently in silence for a short time, and then she started to talk nervously. And, you know, Herbert just kind of continued to drive, kind of appearing to like, he said he was kind of like ignoring her. And then he was fumbling with something down by his side.
Okay.
And Mary had just opened her mouth to speak when his right hand shot up from his hip towards her, and he plunged a hunting knife into her chest and hit her heart immediately.
Oh my.
Killed her instantly.
Jesus.
He continued driving as, you know, she's bleeding profusely because he hit her heart.
Yeah.
Bleeding profusely in the front seat. And he pulled the knife out of her chest, and she slumped forward, and he stabbed her twice in the back as well.
Jeez.
And she fell to the floor. Now, with Mary now dead, Herbert drove out to the mountains and found a turnoff where there appeared to be no cars and no evidence that cars had been there for some time. After parking the car, he dragged Mary's body out about 125 yards into a wooded area, laid her on the ground beneath a bunch of trees, and then decided that sacrificing her would slow the rapid pollution of the world. So he decided he needed to go a step further to make sure that occurred, because she was going to be the sacrifice that would stop the pollution of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So to make sure that this sacrifice was correct, he sliced open her body, expecting to find evidence of pollution inside of her.
What the fuck?
When he didn't see any immediate traces of pollution, he began digging with his hands. First into her intestines, then in her chest cavity.
Oh my God.
And eventually he accepted that there was no pollution. So he stood up, wiped the blade of the knife clean, and returned to the car and thought, well, this'll keep us safe for a little while.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Gruesome. Like so brutal.
And didn't find any quote unquote evidence of
But
pollution,
still
felt
I
like
think
it was
we're good.
fine.
Yeah. Now, for months, Herbert Mullin had been certain the voices in his head were guiding him on a mission to save mankind from disaster, and no one could convince him otherwise. But after the murder of Mary Guilfoyle, he wasn't as certain in his divine guides as he'd once been, because again, he
Yeah.
didn't find what he was thinking he would find.
Right.
Because if Mary had been the one responsible for all the pollution in the world, should he have not seen evidence of that in her body? Now, the tension between what he believed to be true and what he saw around him was causing him to grow very anxious and frustrated and irritable. He had killed 2 people, sacrifices to prevent the end of mankind. And though he was now less convinced that he had done it correctly or done the right thing.
Okay.
So those tensions and frustrations led to more arguments with his parents. Because remember, he's still living at home,
Yeah.
which in turn led to further drug use, which in turn led to worsening mental health.
Yeah.
When he asked his mother what she thought he should do to calm his unrest, she gave the same answer she always gave him: turn to the Lord.
I don't think that will always help.
This ended up being a statement that is so chilling when you find out what happens.
Oh, no.
Because she said, turn to the Lord. And in the past, whenever she would, she would give that answer, he would dismiss the church and Western religion as another tool to control the masses.
Mhm.
But this time he decided, yes, I will turn to the Lord.
Oh, God.
Now, on the afternoon of November 2nd, just 1 week after the murder of Mary Guilfoyle, Herbert went to St. Mary's Catholic Church in Los Gatos. He later claimed he had gone to the church simply to confess his sins.
Uh-huh.
But he also went there with a hunting knife tucked inside his jacket pocket. So you take what you will from that.
Probably not just confessing sins.
When he walked inside, he went through the Catholic routine he'd learned as a child, dipping his hand in the thing, crossing himself with the holy water, and then kneeling to pay tribute to the altar.
Okay.
After finishing this whole routine, he noticed that there was a little light glowing above the confessional booth, and so he went towards it. But he was hesitant to go inside and, take a seat opposite a priest.
Yeah.
He was a little nervous. Now, inside the confessional, St. Mary's assistant pastor, Father Henry Tomei, could hear like a little bit of what was going on. He's like, somebody's out there. So he was wondering what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Father Tomei slipped the lock on his side of the confessional and swung the door open to find a very disheveled Herbert Mullin standing before him. Now, before Father Tomei could even open his mouth, Herbert pulled the hunting knife from his jacket and thrust it upward into the priest's chest.
Oh, my God.
The force of it sent both of them tumbling backwards into the open confessional, where Father Tomei desperately struggled to get out from underneath Herbert Mullin. Now, Herbert didn't understand what was happening because he had stabbed this man in the chest, just like he had stabbed Mary Guilfoyle a week before, and assumed he'd stabbed him in the heart. But he didn't just die. Like, why is he struggling? So he pulled the knife from the priest's chest, and Herbert lost his grip on the knife, and it fell onto the floor. And as he leaned down to pick it up, he felt something in his head, because Father Tomei kicked him in the side of the head as hard as he could, just above his ear. But unfortunately, Herbert Mullin was too quick, and as Father Tomei tried to get up and flee, Herbert rushed at him again, bringing the knife down for a second time, and then a third, and then a fourth, and finally, the priest was dead.
Oh, my God.
Father Tomei lay half in and half out of a confessional booth.
Oh, that's so disturbing.
So Herbert tried to push the man's leg into the booth to cover up his crime. And as he was struggling to get Father Tomei's body inside of the confessional booth, he thought he heard a person scream. So he turned around and no one was there. But he was he was certain that he heard footsteps running out of the church. So he decided he shouldn't waste any more time. And he wiped the blood from his knife, put it back where he had gotten it, and he quickly ran out of the church and got to his car and drove the 20 minutes back to Santa Cruz. Now, at the time, Herb had wondered whether the scream he'd heard, followed by the footsteps, had been in his head.
Yeah.
Because he knows that something is awry.
Right.
But what he had heard was a real scream of terror from Margaret Reed, who'd walked into the church and caught a glimpse of Herbert trying to force the priest's dead body back into the confessional.
Oh, my.
Can you imagine seeing that?
Cannot, will not.
The footsteps were because Reed ran the fuck out of the church to the rectory, where she pounded on the door of the senior priest, Father Richard Hawley, And Reed explained what she'd just seen, and Holly instructed his secretary to call an ambulance. While that was going on, Reed and Holly returned to the church, and Father Holly administered extreme unction, which is last rites, to Father Tomei, who was his friend, which is really sad. The ambulance arrived a few minutes later, but it was too late. Father Tomei was pronounced dead a few minutes after 4 p.m.
He's just out here doing his job.
Well, and it's
serving the
even
Lord.
worse because what we find out is that I don't even think he was supposed to be there that day.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God. I hate when things, like when you hear something like that.
Oh, it's awful. Now, in Southern California, the unsolved murder of, this man, Lawrence White, who didn't have any next of kin, had been dealing with kind of a tough time and was in and out of, incidents, very trivial incidents with the law.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get a lot of attention with the press,
course,
unfortunately. No. And honestly, weirdly, neither did the disappearance of a young co-ed college student. Mary Guilfoyle has not been found.
Right.
Because a lot of people thought she had just run away voluntarily.
It was the time.
Yeah. But the brutal murder of a priest in the day in a church confessional,
I mean,
that's got a lot of elements that's gonna...
I get that.
It definitely caught everyone's attention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one you're gonna go, what?
Very sad that the
What
other two
now?
things didn't,
Absolutely.
but you can very much understand why this...
Why this would. I'm not
would
saying the other
captivate
two
people.
shouldn't, but
No.
this one definitely makes sense.
Right.
The next day, the Associated Press reported on the death of the 68-year-old French priest. According to Margaret Reed, she'd entered the church just in time to see, quote, a young assailant kicking and striking the priest.
Oh.
Now, as expected, Father Tomei's death prompted a large investigation as investigators combed the city looking for anything that pointed to a suspect. According to Father Tomei's housekeeper, like I said, he hadn't planned on being at the church that afternoon.
Oh.
He had only stopped in to see if anyone was there waiting to give confession.
Wow.
So this is it's two things. It's very sad. And two, it made it clear that the killer hadn't expected him to be there.
Right.
So this wasn't planned. Detective Sergeant Jim Shea told reporters, so far there does not appear to be any motive at all for this killing. And they also hadn't found a murder weapon or identified even a potential suspect. And a few days later, detectives in attendance at Tomei's funeral started scanning the faces and body language of more than 700 attendees at his funeral. So he was obviously well loved.
Yeah.
And they were hoping that the man's killer might be among them because that does
happens
happen.
a lot.
But they didn't find anyone suspicious. Like the murders of Lawrence White and Mary Guilfoyle, the murder of Father Henry Tomei appeared completely motiveless and baffled investigators who simply couldn't fathom who would kill a priest in the daytime in a church and stuff him in a confessional. But while they may not have understood the killer's motive, they did understand the dangers of having a killer on the loose, and a vigorous investigation was then launched. At the same time, Mary Guilfoyle's parents had hired a private detective to track their daughter down, who was still missing.
That's so sad because the police thought she was a runaway.
Now, investigator Bill Tubbs said it appears that she probably was picked up as a hitchhiker. There's just no logical place she could have gone except for her stated destination, but she just never arrived there. Now, between the intensification of the investigations and Herbert Mullin's growing discomfort with what he'd done now, because he's still not feeling like he's doing what he's supposed to, he decided to slow down and develop a strategy. He knew he still needed to offer sacrifices to hold off the impending disaster and gain the approval of the voices that guided him, which had come to include his father's voice, he said.
What?
But he thought there had to be a more morally righteous way.
Other than murder?
And we will get to that in part 2.
Elena!
He is
This
a
is-
scary motherfucker.
Yeah, this is scary. And it's also just really sad that this
Oh, it's
all
so sad.
could have been avoided had he been properly medicated.
He needed to be hospitalized, medicated. He needed intensive help,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Because also this entire time he's sitting here saying, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but he's still doing it because he has this intense belief that there's voices telling
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
this. It's a very interesting case because of how layered it is.
Right.
It's so sad though.
It is really
I mean, these
sad.
people were Lawrence White was just walking down the street and stopped to help someone
Mm-hmm.
when he was down on his luck. That's the
Yep.
thing. He was down on his luck.
was still going to help someone.
And he still took time out of his, while walking down the street, not even to a home, to stop and help somebody.
Yeah.
And it's like Mary Guilfoyle was just running late to an appointment, her whole life in front of her.
Oh, it's like we were saying, it's so sad. Like when somebody's not supposed to be there, it's like if she was just running late. Like she shouldn't have
was
even
on
been
time,
there, you know?
And then Father Tomei, not even supposed to be at the
there.
church, but he stopped in case people needed confession.
Wow. Ugh.
Like, it's really sad.
Awful.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
awful.
Well, we'll hear more of the awful in part 2.
Yeah.
And we hope you keep listening.
And we hope you
keep
it
weird. You know not to keep it this weird.
Bye.
Bye.
Struggling with bloat or indigestion? You're not alone. 2 out of 3 Americans suffer from poor gut health. I'm Tina Anderson, co-founder of Just Thrive Probiotic. As a mom of 3, when no probiotic solved my family's tummy troubles, I created my own. Just Thrive Probiotic is the only probiotic that arrives 100% alive in your gut, supporting 5-star digestion, immunity, and better sleep. We even have a formula for pets. Use code SIRIUS for 20% off at justthrivehealth.com/serious.
Traditional home security only alerts you after a break-in, and that's too late. Simply Safe is changing that.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
We don't just alert, we stop crime before it starts. Simply Safe, plan starting around $1 a day. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/SXM or with promo code SXM.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.